And we're back.
Hi.
Relationship psychiatrist, Dr. Laura Dabney, relationship coach, Joelle Brant.
Hello.
And we're continuing our chat on toxic relationship patterns. This is a good one because people come to us and say, something's wrong with my relationship. I'm unhappy with it, but they're not able to say what's going on.
Yeah.
Except for maybe, some details here and there, but they're not able to see the overall picture.
Correct.
Right. So we're always encouraging you to, I think people call it coming out of the weeds, stepping above the weeds and looking in, what's going on.
Yes.
So last week was sort of our one.
The intro. Intro to issues.
Intro to issues, right. Basically, aggressive patterns are toxic. Now we talked about constructive aggression being boundary setting. But then last week we talked about destructive aggression, which hurts a relationship. And just briefly, those are criticizing, helping when you've not been asked, controlling something, trying to get someone on the same page as you, not letting someone be on a separate page. So today I said we were going to talk about something that's less obvious, and that is passivity.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times have people come in and say, well, I just let him have his way because then there wouldn't be a fight.
It's just easier.
And I say, is this easy? You haven't described one thing that's easy.
Or they get their way, but then you're so angry and then it manifests in a different way.
And that's destructive passivity.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people think passivity is kind and will get people to love you. If I just let everybody have their way, they're going to love me so much. But it never happens. It doesn't work that way. So there is constructive passivity, and then there's destructive passivity. And I have people look at me when I say that, like I've got two freaking heads. Right? Like when we say the Browns are going to win the Super Bowl, right? That's that kind of stupid statement that does not work. Let's think about it for a second.
Your poor husband.
My poor husband's a Browns fan, so we're going to move along. We're in the season of in the bargaining season now. It's the season of hope. Now we're in the bargaining. If they would only, if this.
Oh, so you mean how I say, as long as Saquon doesn't get hurt, it's okay for the season for my Giants.
Yes, something like that.
Okay.
And then, I don't know if you do, but he goes into the capitulation phase, which is around Thanksgiving, the mourning, the grieving. It's not going to happen. And then
I'll get there.
We switch to the Patriots games and ride through the Super Bowl.
Okay, wait, I have to reel us in. All right, so sorry guys, football, we can talk about that for hours. So when it comes to the passivity,
yes,
what would be the biggest one that you think that people don't realize is like the destructive passivity?
Right. So the destructive passivity tends to be giving into something when you don't want to. Okay. You're pretending, lying, shall we say, that you're okay with going to the in-laws for the 600th Thanksgiving in a row. Okay. When you don't really feel that way.
Okay.
All right. So this is not a good thing. The destructive passivity I always compare to, like, if you're going down a street and a child or an animal's in the road and you just keep on walking, right? And there's a car coming. All right. So that's just something bad's going to happen. And you just kept walking.
Yeah.
Not judging, just saying. It's not doing something in that moment, problem's going to happen. Not admitting that you don't want to go somewhere or do something when somebody does is that happening. It's a car coming into your life. It's going to be a problem. Either, and you brought this up already, either that resentment of having to do it is going to make you blow up at some point or do something passive aggressive. That's where that comes from, by the way. Or your partner is not going to think you're lovely and kind and the best thing in the whole world. They're going to think you're not interested, never involved, don't care.
That brings another one up, the spacing out.
Yes.
Or just not paying attention or just not being there.
Yeah, exactly.
That's another passive.
Destructive passive. We get this confused too.
So it's another destructive passive
Yes, it is, because you think these people who do this think that they're being kind by letting the person, well, they need to vent, they need to go on and on and on. No, they may need to, but you do not have to
Do this.
Yeah. And if you think the other person doesn't notice that, you're wrong. And that's the car in the intersection, people. And what's the third one? Well, alcohol abuse, substance abuse in general is another way of disappearing.
Yeah.
Right? Because you aren't there. You may think, oh, this is helping my mood, so it's going to help our relationship. Never happens that way. Right?
Yeah.
The other person feels you have another, almost like having another relationship.
Another outlet versus talking to them.
Right. So that's another one.
Okay.
We also talk about leaving. So one of the boundary settings that we talked about in several videos ago was to leave. If someone is mistreating you, if they yelling, cursing, whatever, calling you names, and it starts to make you anxious or scared for your well-being, then we always advise that you leave. Now, that is actually a destructive passive move. Unless you make a statement first. Because if you just leave, the person's left hanging. Are you coming back? What's going on?
Why are you or they're just like, okay,
yeah,
I got my point.
Yeah, right. Or they think they won. They think you're in agreement. We're back to that. Yeah. But in fact, the constructive passive way to deal with that is to say, look, I'm getting anxious and scared because you are now, I feel out of control. I cannot have this discussion with you any further. I'm going for a car ride. I'll be back at 9. Whatever. That's the line to add, so you can be passive and not destroy your relationship.
Yeah, because that's constructive. You're telling them this is what's happening, and you're giving them an idea of what's going through your head.
Exactly.
Nobody is a mind reader.
No one's a mind reader.
How many times did we say that?
Several times a day. No mind readers. Psychiatrist. We don't read minds either, but we see these patterns and people think, oh, how did you know that that's what we do? If you do, you tend to go with one or the other.
Yeah.
If you do the aggression constructive pattern, the destructive aggression pattern, we need to make something simpler. Destructive aggression pattern or destructive passive pattern, that tends to be your modality throughout. So that's a good thing to check, see what you do, and try to change that.
Yes. It helps.
It helps.
I mean, it is amazing to me how many times I know for people that I've talked to when I've dealt with other people's relationships, is that one small significant change in the sense of verbalizing, okay, I'm walking away from this fight, or this is not working, I need a moment, and they walk away. It makes all that difference because the other person is like, oh, right, they're not just storming off, they just need a moment.
And then you have a better chance when you come back together to have that discussion go better.
And it's an easier way for people to stay. Like you said, you can't force someone to be on the same page.
Right.
But when you walk away and come back, it's an easier way to be on different pages and be okay with that.
Right. Let it be. Yeah. Notice we're talking in our videos about how you can make changes. That's a key piece, right? Mm-hmm. We're not talking about beating on someone else to change, because that is, say it with us, destructive aggression. We want you to make these changes. You can do this. You can make your own relationship changes.
It's true.
You don't have to change the other person, which, hint, hint, is impossible.
It's crazy though, because sometimes the changes that you make in yourself, they notice. And then sometimes that brings them to
they start picking up on it.
They pick up on it. Yeah. They may be more attentive. And then in your head, you're like,
they start to get healthier. It's not even conscious, I don't think, half the time. They just start.
You're right.
Oh, that's how you're handling it. Well, I'm going to try to handle it that way. Mm-hmm. So all good things here, people. So if this hits a nerve with you, love it, pass it on, and stay tuned, because next week there's one last category of toxic relationship patterns that I bet you don't know about.
I wonder if I even know about it at this point.
Dun, 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 dun.
Okay.
You know.
Okay.
You know, you know. I'm just putting it.
Definitely share this. Call us.
Please.
You know.
We had a request about what if someone says "suck it up" to your, and that's a passive. That means they want you to be passive, and now you get to say, "Sucking it up" and not saying anything would be destructive to me and our relationship. So I will not suck it up, and then you might want to consider that person as a red flag person.
All right,
Thank
we'll
you for
see
the
you
question.
again.
Bye.